Yo, 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 yo. What's up, what's up, what's up? Give up the rack. And hello to my fellow revolutionaries. You know who you are. Voltaire, straight off the bat, I'm sure that these laws will protect us, right? Right? Somebody tell me, please. Joanne's, what is that? Tupanin, I'm going to say, for sure. Think of the children and stuff, etc., etc. I don't know, Joanne's, have you been here before? Have you been on this stream? Am I even pronouncing your name right? So many questions, so little time. I'll leave it to you. Please answer me so I know what's going on. It's LARP Jeff in the house. Brothers, how are we now today, bro? How are we, brothers? I got one question for you. Are you ready for the AI regulation? Now, ladies and gentlemen, comrades, everybody else, and everybody in between, we are going to be speaking about something that has caught me by surprise, to be honest. I saw it this morning because it actually came up on my Instagram for some reason. It seems to be my algorithm on Instagram is just like littered with all of the AI gossip of the day. And it was rather misleading, this AI gossip, can I say, because it was basically alluding to new AI laws that have just taken effect in Europe. However, these have actually been around for literally a year now. It was July 2024 that this EU AI Act actually came to pass. And so it's actually been in circulation now for a year. So it's not exactly new, which one, it pipped me. So it's a bit misleading how I framed it, but it technically has dropped the first AI regulations of substance in the world, and we're just going to discover that. I was just too excited about it this morning, and so I've wanted to research it, and that's what we're going to get up to today. We're going to look at some AI. We're going to go down that AI rabbit hole. Let's be honest. It's been a while since we've touched AI. We used to do a lot of AI stuff over the last, like, I don't know, 2-3 months ago. And I haven't really touched a lot of it since. It really used to go hand in hand with our assessment of techno-feudalism, surveillance capitalism. The AI revolution was all the rage. And yeah, I was stoked when I saw that the Europeans, and they seem to be quite progressive on this when it comes to regulating Silicon Valley and trying to protect their own industry and their own people against the power of the surveillance capitalists of America. They seem to be very much on the front foot, the old Europeans on that front. So it's actually, like I said, it's actually a year old. However, they really have been world leaders in trying to put in a rein on the AI industry. But like, what does that actually entail? What are they really doing about AI? Is this about AI industry regulation, just like regulating the players themselves? Or is there regulations about AI companies and their interaction with us, the lowly consumer? Joanne, again, I had some good experiences coding with Gemini. Oh, there you go. That's lovely. I haven't really used, I'm not a coder. I'm not tech savvy at all. And I don't do vibe coding either. But apparently, yeah, Gemini's quite good. Apparently, ChatGPT 5 is okay. Like, it makes some mistakes, but it actually corrects the mistakes quite well, where sometimes you get into like a little bit of a feedback loop with other ones where they can't really fix themselves. But apparently ChatGPT 5 is good. I don't know. Has anyone actually tried ChatGPT 5? I think we used it like last week on a stream live on a Thursday, I think it was, for the first time when it first dropped. I was surprised that it came up, and it has been disappointing. Like yesterday, I was actually asking it a question. You'll like this, Voltaire, but I asked it and I knew the answer. I can't remember why I was asking it something I already knew. Maybe I had framed it another way, but I asked it something about Christopher Luxon, the New Zealand Prime Minister, and it basically said that the Prime Minister of New Zealand was someone else altogether. So I'm assuming it must have taken an old Prime Minister maybe of New Zealand, or maybe an old leader of the National Party or something like that. It was completely off. And I said to it, I was like, this is wrong. Your response is dramatically wrong. Like, I don't even remember ChatGPT 4 making mistakes or errors to that magnitude. So I don't really know what's going on there, but they have been talking about it so much. Like Sam Altman has not been able to contain himself with all of the hype around ChatGPT 5. Like they were talking about at the beginning of the year, like they really had to contain ChatGPT 5 and it wasn't safe to be released to the public. And they had to, figure out everything before they could unleash, artificial general intelligence on the human race. But it doesn't really live up to that hype from my perspective. But what would I know? I just use it as a research assistant mostly. Hey, is it gay if I'm watching Mystery while I poo? Well, it depends, I guess, if you also find some type of sexual gratification off that act. But if it's just general, hey, need to go to the toilet, then, takes all sorts. And we take all sorts in this stream too. So I'm glad you asked. And I'm actually glad I was able to respond to that. And I hope you appreciate it. Like Elon Muskie. So shall we dive down the rabbit hole? But I don't really even think there's really much clarification on what this law is about. I don't know if we can get much out of it, but I would like to know. I'm here to ask the big question. Oh my God. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You're here to ask the big questions. That's for sure. And don't hold back. Don't hold back. Because, it's what separates the men from the boys. So let's have a look-sees here. Let's go straight to the Europeans themselves, shall we? Why not go to the source? So here's the act. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. All right. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not going to do it to myself either. But this is a high-level summary of the AI Act. And this is from the EU Artificial Intelligence Act itself. It's got its own domain. It can do no wrong. We're reading it in English. You can go French, German, or Spanish. They don't have other options there. It's a bit tight, as poor other nations or member states. In this article, we provide you with a high-level summary of the AI Act, selecting parts which are most likely to be relevant to you, regardless of who you are. Isn't that funny about acts that you can really just summarize the whole thing for everyone, for any audience, literally for any audience. So what's the point of the entire act? Come on, just so lawyers can argue over stuff. Got censored already. Must be onto something. Oh my God, the algorithm is working. How did I miss this? 4AS in the house. Yo. What's up? Give up your AI laws to the tech bros. Now that's somewhere where I want to go, because from what I understand on this brief Instagram post that I saw, Google signed up to it. Even OpenAI were pretty, they came to the party kicking and screaming, but Meta was just like, you, EU, you. And they basically told them to get stuffed. Which, from what I understand about Meta and previously Facebook, is very much in their playbook. Facebook have always been there telling world governments to go and screw themselves, and they're not going to put up with anything, and they'll see them in the courts because they can't be regulated. They're above the law, that kind of thing. So we'll maybe get into that a bit later. But I really want to just know what this thing does, because look. If we look at this from a Marxist perspective, if we just look at this generally from another point of view of the next industrial revolution, AI, whether you believe the hype or not, is going to be a disruptive technology. It already seems to be a disruptive technology. And that's not just in the sense that we kept on getting, smashed by capitalists and business owners who just want to get rid of their workforces. That's a problem. Don't get me wrong. And we might get into a bit of discussion on that in terms of the Australian perspective, and how we seem to be gearing ourselves up for this AI revolution that is coming. But AI is a disruptor also from a very personal sense. You really can do things now with this type of technology that you just weren't able to do before. You are able to expand your knowledge base and your skill set beyond what an individual was capable of doing before. Unless you had like teams of people and researchers and coders and all these different experts in the field. So, the bourgeois, they could really probably afford to hire a whole bunch of people to do all this sort of stuff for them. But if you can use AI properly, you really can get some good benefits out of it that were just not available from a Google search or using a search engine. And so it is a disruptive technology. It's just how much of a disruptor it's going to be. Is it going to be as significant of an event as the introduction of electricity into the economy, or the advent of the steam engine or nuclear power? Like, how revolutionary is it going to be? Time will tell. But I do think it's got incredible potential. The only real problem with AI, take it or leave it. Whether you like this type of Marxian analysis of capital or not, the real problem with AI for me is not its disruptive potential. Is not the fact that, like Skynet, it may kill the human race. No, it's the fact that it's owned by tech bros, massive corporations, billionaires, and individuals with the private interests who are looking to monopolize on another industry so they can control an entire marketplace, if not the world. And so you got to seize the means, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. You got to seize the means. Daniel Ritter, hi all. Look, I'm getting some people in here, I swear, that have not been here before. Joanne's, you still have not answered my question. Don't be rude. Tell me if you've ever been here before and let me know if, I'm pronouncing your name properly. Daniel Ritter, hello and welcome to the stream. It's good to have newbies in here, unless there are general lurkers around who don't get to say hi all the time and you're saying hi for the first time. Welcome to the stream. Jones, you actually said before, we should ask ChatGPT what to do with the laws. Hey, that's actually a really good point. I was actually going to do that at some point. Let's just jump the gun and go straight there. I haven't been in a live stream before. Okay, well, welcome. I'm glad that you could make it. It's nice to have some new faces. And I've actually had to hire from Finland. No way. Wow, we get an international audience. Now, this is very interesting. Welcome to the stream. So maybe that's the difference, because I've actually, the last 2 days, because of scheduling conflicts, have had to move this stream time around. And I wonder if I'm picking up different audiences. Kind of semi-lurking as I raid some dungeons. Interesting. Well. I hate the new EU AI laws. I'm creating fine tunes of checkpoints like Flux 1. Well, you actually seem to know something about the new EU AI laws. So you might actually have some strong opinions on this, because we are running in here blind and we're going to figure it out on the fly. Puckett, we'll do it live. So let's go down that. Let's do the on the nose thing and ask ChatGPT what its opinions are. I think that's great. Welcome, newbies. The revolution won't be televised. It'll be streamed. Don't you forget it. And you can enact the revolution from your toilet bowl. Remember that, ladies and gentlemen. That is the promise of the 21st century. Right there, encapsulated here. Don't forget it. So yeah, 4AS, I'm going to do that. If you are interested in being part of the conversation outside of the streams, then please go over to the Discord and join the chat there. This is where we share propaganda. And if you don't like being on the stream itself and you want to be in part of the conversation, then go over to the Discord and you can join the stream chat there. Censored comments. Voltator, I think these companies are trying to control the data that they feed the AI more. I can't believe you got censored for that. That's not even slightly controversial. But, Voltator, naughty. You're already being picked up by the algorithm today. So you so far hold the mantle for the most outrageous behavior in this stream. Can I just say, let's do it. Can you please give me a brief description of the EU AI Act. I'm pretty sure this is ChatGPT 5. So let's have a look at see what it thinks. I did say brief, and it looks like it's pumping it out. Okay, right, let's just have a crack anyway. Here's a concise overview of the EU Artificial Intelligence Act. It was first ever the EU the EU AI Act is the first ever comprehensive legal framework regulating artificial intelligence globally. It was adopted in mid-2024. So like I said, it's been out for a year. So I guess you could really test out to see if it's working or if it's just pissing people off, like poor Daniel over here. Let's have a look. Risk-based clarification. The Act categorizes AI systems into 4 risk levels. Classic government regulation. Hey, everything's a bloody risk to be managed, each with corresponding regulatory responses. Well, I guess that's the point of regulation, isn't it? Unacceptable risk. AI practices deemed harmful, such as social scoring, manipulative behavior. Hello? Come on. This is just like a veritable who's who of the tactics of the surveillance capitalists out there. Real-time biometric identification are outright banned, except under narrowly defined law enforcement circumstances with judicial authorization. Look at that. Okay? Unless you have got a warrant, then hands off my real-time biometric data and identification. That's pretty interesting. High risk. Systems that significantly affect safe or fundamental rights, like medical devices, hiring tools, or critical infrastructure, are allowed under strict requirements, including pre-market assessments, transparency obligations, and ongoing monitoring. I don't even know what that means, let's be honest. Affect safety or your fundamental rights. Like medical devices, hiring, so AI in medicine and hiring tools. Well, we've had a look at this a few times on this stream, haven't we? Me and 4AS. Welcome. Kind of good. In the US, so many stores have AI cameras scanning bio, and the data goes to a company. Well, yes, they do that a lot. And if they're talking about real-time biometric identification in terms of surveillance, they're going to do it anyway. This is just whether it should be done by the private industry and used for profit in terms of data collection. But they're doing it anyway. They're going to be surveilling people anyway, I would say. Just my hunch. I base that on absolutely nothing. Welcome to the chat. Yeah, the medical devices, the hiring tools. We've looked at this in the AI Bill of Rights that was actually drafted under the Biden administration. And yes, there is some very nefarious hiring tools out there. But a lot of it comes down to the fact that whatever the AI is using, if it has crappy data, which there's a lot of data out there that has bias problems in it, then the AI just sucks anyway. So they're going to be regulating that type of stuff. Limited risk. AI tools with manageable risk, such as chatbots, must meet light transparency obligations, like informing users when content is AI generated. Interesting. Minimal or no risk. Most everyday AI, like spam filters or simple recommendation systems, face no regulatory restrictions and can continue operating freely. Like Grok. Oh, right. Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, that's a interesting point. Grok has come under a bit of heat recently for doing some very, very unconventional banter, right? If that's what you're referring to. Talking about being Mecha Hitler. Because, Musk is just the champion of free speech. And he's going to take off the filters. And, and battle the woke mind virus. That's the worst thing ever. General purpose AI. The Act includes specific transparency and governance rules for general purpose AI models, e.g., ChatGPT, Llama 3, GPAI providers must disclose details on training data, usage instructions, technical documentation, and comply with copyright law. Well, good luck. Good luck with the last one. Because, ChatGPT, OpenAI are in big trouble when it comes to copyright. They basically scoured the entire internet, let's be honest, and just copied and pasted everything in existence to train their models. And now we're worried about copyright law. Like, come on. And the Americans right now are working through Trump to try and actually relax copyright legislation when it comes to, the tech bros and AI companies. We need to relax our positions on this type of stuff because, it's generative AI. It's like if you, as a human, listen to your favorite music and then start making that music yourself. Are you generating stuff because you've heard and been inspired by other artists and you're technically taking them, like using them as inspiration, you're copying their material? Or are you just producing something new? Are you generating something new that wasn't there before? Philosophical discussion, if you ask me. Very difficult for the courts to figure that one out. For GPAI models deemed to pose systematic risks, stricter oversight and additional obligations apply. Interesting implementation timeline. The Act's provisions are phased in over time to give stakeholders a transitional period. August 2024, Act entered into force. February 2025, ban on unacceptable risk AI took effect. Mid-August 2025 onward, obligations for GPAI models become applicable, e.g. transparency and governance. There you go. And so that's probably why it's popping up a little bit at the moment, is because it's kicking in at the moment with regards to this idea of general purpose AI. Like I'm really not down with that term either. There must be an actual definition in the Act for what general purpose means. And then by mid or August 2026 and 2027, requirements for high-risk AI systems will come fully into force with some extended deadlines. So let's go back to high risk, because I think there was some speculation on that one before. Medical devices hiring unacceptable risk. So AI practices deemed harmful, such as social scoring, manipulative behavior, and real-time biometric identification. I don't know, man. In a surveillance capitalist world, I don't think you can be a state and not have real-time biometric identification. I think that happens. That just generally happens. Maybe they're reserving that for the state. But like, you've got me intrigued now. Whoever it was that made that call. It was you. Copyright law is Current AI companies probably want that right. They want to gatekeep to prevent competitors. I guess they want to gatekeep, but like they were on the cutting edge of destroying and laughing in the face of copyright law to be able to produce these large language models, these generative models in the first place. Like they just stole all the existing information out there to create these machines. No one cared when AI started stealing people's art. Then started us AI art apps all over social media. I knew we were doomed with the societal response to that. Only snowballed from there. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's the general play. Do it first, then use morality to prevent others from doing it. Flood the zone. Do it quick. And then people have to respond to it. Everything the EU does is outrageous, complicated. I'm not against general AI rules, but for a hobbyist like me, providing a full technical documentation for everything is annoying. Interesting. I guess we're going to get to that, like what type of stuff they actually have to do. So this is the governance, I'm assuming. All right, so where were we? No, actually, I wanted to talk about this. I was like, can you give me an example of an application? Can you give me an example of an application of real-time biometric identification, manipulative behavior, and social scoring? Yeah, network of CCTV cameras in a city use facial recognition software to instantly match faces against police watch lists. Like, I don't see the state stopping that. The EU AI Act bans this from general public spaces, except in very narrow cases like preventing an imminent terrorist threat or finding a missing child, or even when only with. See, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. 100%. That's why terrorism in legislation exists, because you need to have some type of trigger in there as a state authority to be able to justify encroaching on people's civil liberties. Why were you surveilling me? We thought there were terrorists there. Why did you break into our house or our community? Because we were worried about terrorists. Why are you sending in troops to this certain area? To fight terrorism. Manipulative behavior. A children's game app uses AI to detect when a child is sad or frustrated via voice tone and facial cues, and then deliberately encourages in-app purchases at that moment, knowing the child is more likely to get by. This is banned because it exploits vulnerability. This is surveillance capitalism 101. No wonder why Mark Zuckerberg didn't want to sign up to this bad boy. Like, that's their entire business model. Is literally. But that's not, is that manipulative behavior as such? Because there is actually behavioral modification, where it goes a step further than just picking up on your traits. They actually change your behavior to get you to do stuff that they want you to do. So, like, this is a step back from that. It's funny how they're lumping this all as AI, isn't it? Social scoring. A government system assigns every citizen with a trustworthiness scale based on factors like debt, repayment history, political opinions posted online. Well, we're fucked. Hey, everyone in this stream right now is absolutely rooted, if that was actually a thing, if you were judged on your political associations online and your social associations. Hey, people with low scores might be denied jobs, housing, or travel permits. Social scoring. This is legit. I didn't think that was happening in the EU, though. EU Act prohibits such systems if they lead to unfair treatment or restriction of fundamental rights. Right. Interesting. It's quite a broad document then, isn't it? They need to limit these laws to big companies. Many business laws only apply to businesses above $1 million revenue or above an employee count. That way, hobbyists don't get affected. Interesting. Very interesting. Again, I've never seen you before. If you're new, let us know. And Daniel, I don't know if you've actually responded. Please let us know if you're new or not. And yeah, introduce yourself. All right, so where else are we? Implementation timeline, we talked about that. Governance enforcement to ensure consistent application across the EU. The Act establishes an AI office and European Commission, scientific expert panel, member states AI board, finds extraterritorial impact. Non-compliance may result in significant fines based on a percentage of the company's global turnover, similar in design to the GDPR enforcement model. Importantly, the Act applies not only to EU-based organizations, but also to any AI systems that significantly affect individuals in the EU, even if developed or deployed outside the bloc. That's where the teeth is at. That's why it's important, right? Because you have all these global predatory surveillance capitalists that come in and significantly profit off your local population. And what, they're not subject to these rules? Why? Because they're foreigners? I don't know, man. Interesting. So it's aiming, I think this is the most important part of any legislation and act. It's like, what the hell do they actually want to do with this? What are the objects? Promote safe, transparent, and human-centric AI aligning with European values. Like, what are European values? Anyone? Anyone? Maybe someone from Europe could answer that question. Balance innovation with ethical oversight, setting a precedence for global AI governance, influence international standards like the GDPR did for data protection, which is it was pretty good. Their data protection is like, it's not extensive by any stretch of the imagination, but like compared to people from the US or compared to people from other parts of the developed world, my gosh, going to Europe and getting warnings about everything every time you find out someone's trying to scrape your data is pretty crazy, actually. Entry into force, risk categories, general purpose. Well, I would really like to know actually more about this. Can you explain a little bit more how this is going to affect companies like OpenAI or Meta? Can you please explain how this is going to affect companies like OpenAI, Meta, xAI, etc.? Given that this stage of the legislation has now taken effect. All right, so like, let's see if that's actually in the... Okay, 4-point summary. The Act classifies an AI according to its risk. Unacceptable risk is prohibited. Most of the text addresses high-risk AI systems, which are regulated. A small section handles limited-risk AI systems subject to lighter transparency. This is the actual official summary from the EU, okay, if you're wondering what I'm reading. Smaller section handles limited-risk AI systems subject to lighter transparency obligations. Developers and deployers must ensure that end users are aware that they are interacting with AI chatbots and deepfakes. Minimal risk is unregulated, including the majority of AI applications currently available on EU single market, such as AI-enabled video games and spam filters, at least in 2021. This is changing with generative AI. So, I'm from the EU. Daniel, welcome. Jaden Storer, Smooth Brain, that just joined. Can you please explain, like, I'm 5 briefly? Smooth Brain just joined. Can you please explain, like, I'm 5? Like, what would you like us to explain exactly? Do you want to know what the EU AI Act is? Like, we're actually trying to find that out now. I'm actually trying to get my head around it. Because, like, I only look at things from a techno-feudalist, surveillance capitalist perspective, how they just scrape data off us to feed their never-ending, insatiable lust to control people through data and use that to kind of profit from. So I don't look at it from a technical perspective. That's why I was wondering, whoever has been talking about this affecting people that are just hobbyists, like, how does this actually affect you as a hobbyist? You have to fill in paperwork when you develop new artificial systems, artificial AI, software, machine learning. Like, what are you doing that, like, puts you under risk of this? Just whatever you understand. Is it to limit their ability to mine our data? I don't know, actually. I don't think it is. I think they've already got legislation around about, mining our data, or mining data from EU member states. But what it seems to be about is actually about the ethical use of AI. So if people are going to be using AI to monitor you or to surveil you, or to use it for systems that have some type of social function potentially, or an economic function, like, maybe in hiring and firing, then they have to do so and disclose it, or some stuff is just completely off the table altogether. So it seems to be about kind of fashioning an ethical standard about how AI should be applied. Also, I'm also at work, so I can't look up just yet. Okay, interesting. Voltator, any Adobe products or similar brands have the right to own your projects that you use their apps for, and then train their own AI tools with our works. That's incredible, isn't it? And that's the surveillance capitalist / techno feudalist. Like, they own the rights to everything that you're doing, and they can lay claim to it. Isn't that interesting? Here, you take this and have fun with it, but anything that you do with it, I own it. The techno feudal overlords, our tech bros. That's what we're getting from it. But yeah, it seems to be setting up some ethical boundaries around AI usage. And like, what an amorphous term. Like, AI, what does AI even mean anyway? Is this like machine learning? Is this just general software stuff that uses algorithms? I don't know. But everyone loves the word AI. General purpose AI. All general purpose AI model providers must provide technical documentation, instruction for use, comply with the copyright directive, and publish a summary about the content used for training. Free and open license. Oh, this is interesting. GPAI model providers only need to comply with copyright and publish the training data summary unless they present a systemic risk. All providers of GPAI models that present a systemic risk, open or closed, must also conduct model evaluations, adversarial testing, track and report serious incidents, and ensure cybersecurity protection. So it's actually about also ensuring the viability and the safety of AI, which is actually quite interesting, because up until now, AI safety has been a very kind of, don't worry about it approach, especially I think in the States, where, in Silicon Valley or Seattle or wherever, where like this stuff is majoritively being produced on a large enough scale to have global implications. Yeah, AI safety has been kind of like, there's a department in the company somewhere that deals with AI safety, but like, don't worry about it. And so they're talking about adversarial testing here and reporting serious incidents and cybersecurity protections, model evaluations. So, there are teams of AI safety experts out there, usually people associated with, I guess, universities and some type of department within the university. And they provide, counter checks or they produce the next generation of AI safety experts who do things like adversarial testing and check what the AI system is capable of. They test the boundaries of what the AI can do, whether it follows instructions, whether or not, it's kind of unpredictable in its behavior, which is all very interesting stuff. So they're actually, it would seem, implementing some type of AI safety standard as well. It's like I've said, the AI safety world is light years behind the development of the technology, because there are safety implications of this stuff. It's unpredictable and it's unexplainable. Like, at the end of the day, and this is my opinion, people argue with me on this one all the time, but whatever. In my opinion, AI is not completely knowable. Like, you can't know exactly, even the people that put together large language models and based on neural networks. No, like, how are you going to explain exactly how ChatGPT came to that answer? Like, exactly. Like, you can get pretty close. You can get maybe even 99% of the way there. But still, there's an element in there. You're like, I'm not too sure exactly how we got to that answer. And where there is that level, that small room, that amount of wriggle room there where it's just, you just don't know exactly what it's doing, because it's It's effectively generating something that wasn't there before. It's doing its own thing. It's making its own decisions about how to do and respond to you with that element of not knowing how a system entirely works or produces something. There's the risk. There's the risk right there. And so AI safety, implementing some AI safety, making that an actual thing, that's actually a very crucial component, I would say, of this legislation. I wonder if it gets the kudos that it deserves. Who defines ethics or boundaries? Hey, you are asking the big questions today. Like, honestly, stop it. Like, that's a good question. And like, what's the ethical use of AI? What's the ethical use of data scraping and collection? Like, let's be honest. Hey, why not? They design the system so, you know, if you're going to be on their platforms, they should be able to scrape whatever data off you they feel like. It's their right. Or is it your right to own your own data? You visit their systems. You're the value creation, not them. Your digital labor, your presence on their platforms is valuable to them. So, like, should you have rights there? Should you have data sovereignty? I like these ethical questions. Where are the boundaries? And like, what are the boundaries with the surveillance too? Like, I don't buy that they like, oh, they're going to ban AI surveillance, like real-time biometric surveillance. Get fucked. I don't believe that for a second. We live in the most surveilled time in history, and they're just going to give that one up. Oh, of course, unless it's for terrorism and for finding children. I have trained a known checkpoint for Flux. From 2nd of August, I have to provide a documentation. A project grew well over a year, so doing the documentation about it now is impossible. I stopped uploading anything. Stuff published before the 2nd of August has a grace period. Imagine to provide the full documentation, including the source for every image used in the training data. We're talking about thousands and thousands of images. The next project I'm going to do will be trained on Qt image. I don't know this reference. And I will document everything from the start now. So is this not a hobby? This is like what you do then, by the sounds of it. And so what, you have to provide evidence of everything that you've trained it on. That's amazing. Is that for a copyright thing then? Daniel, I would like to know more. Jaden Soros. Is it ethical to use AI to sort through audio recording of my farts to figure out the perfect fart and sell it to the fart porn industry? Well, look, why do you need AI to do that? Hey? Can't you just focus group test that one and send it out to all your mates or anyone that you know that's into that type of stuff and ask them for their assistance? You don't need AI for that. But like, is it ethical? Absolutely. Like, what else are we going to use AI for if it's not for that type of data analysis, right? Like, you give it reams and reams of audio and like let it decide which is the perfect one for this industry. Like, why not? Why not? Okay? Great example though. Hypothetical, I hope. I hope you're not actually saving an audio bank of that nature somewhere, but we'll never know, Jaden. We'll never know. Prohibited AI systems. Dun, 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 dun. Deploying subliminal, manipulative, or deceptive techniques to distort behavior and impair informed decision, causing significant harm. My God. Hey, this is literally all that surveillance capitalism is about: collecting your personal data to use it against you to affect your decision making, i.e. make you buy stuff and go places and do things that are favorable to the market. Like, this is just what surveillance capitalism is. Unless, and here's the ethical question again, here's the philosophical question, does significant harm mean? What does significant harm mean? Like, we were looking at the social media ban in Australia where they're going to kick kids off social media platforms under the age of 16. Significant harm for the kids in that case were, eating disorders and people taking their own life because they were bullied or had low self-esteem because of their manipulation by algorithms at the hands of social media giants who profit off conglomerating particular young people of particular demographics and vulnerabilities so they can push products on them and get them to stay on for longer, because if they stay on for longer, they get their eyeballs on more stuff. So, like, where do you draw? What's significant harm? Is it like significant harm to the rest of society because you've damaged a whole generation? Like this is the problem with legislation. All right. What's the test for significant harm? Not just harm. It's got to be significant. Seriously. Yeah, totally hypothetical. Don't worry about it. Yes, it's all about copyright. I am generally using copyright-free stuff. I even went to museums to photograph old art. But, well, during my training, some data got lost due to a damaged SSD. Fuck, that's the worst, man. I have a damaged SSD right now. And, like, it was supposed to be better, man. This, like, SSDs were supposed to change the game, and it's still damaged anyway. There is physical and psychological harm. They normally don't care about the psychological until it starts to become physical. Well, there you go. So, like, let's read between the lines. Voltator has done it for us. What does it mean by significant harm? That means when psychological starts to show itself to your eyes, you can actually start to see it. Exploiting vulnerabilities related to age, disability, socioeconomic circumstances to distort behavior, causing significant harm. Like, again, this is literally what they do. Google. Not saying anything bad about you, Google, or you, YouTube. Hey, don't take us down. But yeah, Google, Meta. Like, this is their bread and butter, ladies and gentlemen. This is how they work. It's exploiting is a harsh word. They're gaming people's tendencies, let's call it. Biometric categorization systems. This is interesting. All right. Inferring sensitive attributes, race, political opinions, trade union membership, religious or philosophical beliefs, sex life or sexual orientation, except labeling or filtering or lawfully acquired biometric data sets, or when law enforcement categorizes. See, this is it, man. I don't buy it for a second. Basically, they're just saying, okay, we won't surveil you and take your biometric data unless it's required for your own safety. And guess who gets to decide that? Hey, the state. So I don't know about that one. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's just limited. I think it was you who said that before. Maybe you, A. Maybe you said that. It's like really just is limited to, okay, should, when the state is surveilling us through their, intricate surveillance technology in the public realm, so outside in public spaces, should that also be managed by private companies who just leech off that data? And I would say no. I would say, if you're going to surveil us as the state, just use your own technology or use your own property, taxpayer-funded property to do that. Don't lease it out to the private industry, because that's what's happening at the moment in the States. You're right. And guess who's profiting off that big time? Palantir. They love that type of stuff. Everyone talks about smart cities in planning and modern urban design. That is just like code for having an entire city being a surveillance apparatus so it can collect data on everyone. I've destroyed 2 SSDs so far by testing AI checkpoints. Wink. What the hell does that mean? Imagine loading in and out large data files like a stress test for SSDs. Interesting. coded response there. I'm not too sure I'm fully across that one. Might have to look into that. Social scoring, okay. Evaluating, classifying individuals or groups based on social behavior or personal traits. This is very, okay, see, it really is, like, who brought it up? Like, what the hell does ethical even mean anyway? Was that you, Dilemmas? Like, this seems to be, like, ethical applications. Like, what should we be using AI for? And what should we be limiting it to? Assessing the risk of an individual committing crime offenses solely based on profiling or personality traits. Like, this is exactly what they're doing anyway, like in the States. Maybe that's why they've gone to this extent, because like the EU seems to do this stuff in response to the very lackluster nature of American regulation when it comes to the tech bros. And like they're doing this stuff already in the States. They are AI policing. I am surprised they're not doing AI policing. That's not true. Actually, Palantir is being used in Europe. So I think in Northern Europe, actually. What was the name? What was the country? All right, let's fact check this. Our research assistant will know for sure. Is Palantir being employed by any law enforcement agencies or police forces in any European countries to help with their data analytics? They're doing this stuff already, solely based on profiling or personality traits, except when used to augment human assessments based on objective, verifiable facts directly linked to criminal activity. So, like, you know, if they suspect you of actual criminal activity, then they're going to track you anyway. Compiling facial recognition databases by untargeted scraping of facial images from internet or CCTV footage, inferring emotions in workplaces or educational institutions, except for medical or safety reasons. That's pretty crazy, man. That's crazy. There's this documentary of them using facial recognition technology in classrooms in China. I don't know if anyone's seen that type of stuff before, but they're basically monitoring these kids, and they're like 5 and 6 year old kids, right? And they're like watching their faces, and you can see like the dots. They've got the biometric data on every kid's face. There's this massive camera at the front of the room, and they're monitoring to see how long the child is paying attention for. And again, this is like this, they've said it's experimental, so it's not like everyone in China does this. They're experimenting with artificial intelligence, biometric data programs, let's call it. And basically they're monitoring these 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds faces to see if they're actually concentrating in class. And the algorithm picks up when they're like, or like they're, you know, they start looking out the window, or like they start doodling, and their parents get a text message saying, hey, your kid only concentrated for 80% of the time in class today. And like it has a dramatic effects on some of these children, because, you know, they get home and like dad's there with the belt, and he's not happy that you weren't paying attention for 100% of the class today. And so like it has effects on these kids. So in terms of educational institutions, stuff like that, scary, scary stuff. Somebody think of the children. Wait, about the emotion stuff, then AI can't be used in HR and PR scenarios? That's a good point, isn't it? Inferring emotions in workplaces, except for medical or safety reasons. No, it shouldn't be used by HR. That's a really good, that's an interesting pickup there. Yeah, because HR definitely, well, they're definitely using it in recruiting for HR purposes. But like, are they tracking people's emotions in the workplace for, you know, HR? I don't know, man. That student example is already crazy, but just how then it means they must already use it on adults. Well, and this is why we have this ethical stuff right now, because the tech bros of Silicon Valley are looking at what the Chinese are up to, because they've got a massive population and there are less structure around, or like the Chinese population is actually a little bit less worried about intrusions on civil liberties than, I guess, an American population is. And so like they they understand that this technology is being used, and sometimes and certain people decide they want to be part of it. And so like the data they're scraping off the Chinese population is huge, the CCP and the large state-owned enterprises and the tech giants of the Chinese market. And so, people in Silicon Valley are really worried about regulation like this because their Chinese counterparts, their competitors, their main competitors, don't have the same regulation styles. And they have access to heaps more biometric data and data generally. Like there's no real problem with facial recognition technology in China being used and conglomerated across the entirety of their ecosystem. They're actually quite overt, I think, about that. And so the American tech bros are pretty upset that they don't have the same liberty as their Chinese counterparts, and they're really pissed off that the EU is doing stuff like this because it's like, come on, we just need the data so we can make our machines better because we don't want to lose this Cold War, this AI arms race. We don't want to lose to the Chinese, do we? Hey, you wouldn't want that. And that's how they kind of convince the American politicians and lawmakers. And so there's the contradiction. Can't get access to the EU. Not with all this stuff. They're going to have to figure out some clever ways around it, and they will. Let's be honest. Are they going to use that data to punish the children or to improve on education? Both. From what I understand, it's both. They're like, okay, now we can get them to concentrate better this way because like they were concentrating more during this part of the class. And so like obviously this was better for the kids. But like I said, they were also messaging the parents and being like, your kid was not concentrating for like 20 minutes. And like some kids, like they were interviewing these kids, and they're just like, oh yeah, when I get home, like, my parents are very angry with me because like they understand that I wasn't paying attention. And so like some of the footage, not all of it, but like some of the footage were like these kids, and they're just like, they know they're being watched, and they just like, they look like zombies almost, some of them, because they're like, fuck, don't look away from the front of the room just in case someone finds out. So like, who knows if they're even really concentrating, but like they don't want to look like they're not concentrating. This sort of use of AI is dystopian or Orwellian. Here, rules are required. Yeah, well, rules, eh? Rules like what? Regulation? Do you think the US is going to have these laws too, or is it already blocked by BBB saying no regulations for 10 years? Yeah, that was interesting. And a small provision, might I add, like sneaky little provision. We went looking for the provision one day in a stream about like that. Oh, but like that restriction was about stopping state and local authorities from regulating AI. It doesn't mean that the federal level can't regulate it. What they don't want is a free-for-all at the state level trying to regulate these large, incredibly large organizations, corporations that produce the AI. They don't want it to be them to be hindered at the state level. They want it to be, I think, regulated just in a one-stop shop fashion at the federal level if necessary. So yeah, the big beautiful bill, it stops the state stepping in and trying to do something, which is arguably unconstitutional anyway. Like the federal government shouldn't really be making laws, I think, that limit state power, but you never know. I didn't know about the big beautiful bill. Good to know. Yeah, crazy. It is interesting. Some students don't concentrate because they are very smart and already know the subject. This is bad for them. They have to put up a show. Yeah, it is bad for them. It's really, like, it was intense. It was really intense. And like I said, this one's not like they were 15 or something like that. These were like 5 and 6 year olds, which is pretty intense. But again, like the way that they framed it in the documentary was like, this is experimental, and everyone whose kids are in there, they kind of opted in for it. It wasn't like they've just rolled this out across the entire nation. I don't want to slander anyone here, but like you have to kind of ask the question, like, how many people are actually opting in for this, and how expansive is the experimentation? But you gotta feel for the children. Really got a feel for them. Real-time remote biometric identification in public accessible space for law enforcement, except when searching for missing persons, abduction victims, and people that have been human trafficked or sexually exploited, preventing substantial or imminent threat to life or foreseeable terrorist attack, or identifying suspects in serious crimes, e.g. murder, armed robbery, narcotic and illegal weapons trafficking, organized crime. See, like, look at all of these provisions. It's just like, well, the only way to catch these people is just to monitor everyone. So we need to have the cameras on all the goddamn time. Like, how do you do it otherwise? You need to have the cameras monitoring people so you can pick up on people's biometric data. So you're scanning people all the time anyway. It really doesn't make sense. I get it though. Like, you want to have some teeth. So if there is some overreach from some state, you can, like, you know, pull them in line with this law. Interesting. High risk AI systems. Some AI systems are considered high risk under the AI Act. High-risk systems are those used as a safety component or a product covered by EU laws and required to undergo third-party conformity assessment, or listed under use cases below, except if the AI system performs a narrow procedural task, improves the result of previously completed human activity. All right, here it is. Non-banned biometrics, remote biometrics identification systems, excluding biometric verification that confirm a person is who they claim to be. Biometric categorization systems, inferring sensitive or protected attributes or characteristics. Emotion recognition systems. This is some scary stuff because they've really got some pretty good AI out there now that, like, understands all, like, the emotional cues in the human face and can, like, pick up on, like, slight movements that the human eye can't even really pick up on, and it can read human faces. There's some interesting AI out there. 4S would know that. Our resident AI explorer Kareem has explained this to us quite well. There's very interesting emotional face reading AI already in circulation, and, like, you have to wonder what they actually really use it for at a state level or a large organization level, like corporations. What do they use it for? Got to get to work. I will leave a follow on your channel. See ya. Nice to meet you, Daniel. Thanks for coming along, and thanks for the banter too. Been very interesting, actually. Someone actually affected by this, so thank you. All right, education and vocational training, AI systems determining access. So, like, Annex 3 was the list, right? Are those listed under, so high risk are listed under Annex 3. Education and vocational training, AI systems discerning access, admission, or assignment to educational and vocational training institution at all levels, employment, workers management, and access to self-employment. AI systems used for recruitment or selection. Yeah, that's high risk. They're doing this stuff already, man. They're using AI to basically screen people for interviews. And again, if it's based on poor data and biases in data, like, it's making some pretty screwed up calls. Like, if you had a HR department there screening people for interviews, you wouldn't have the same problems as a computer that's an algorithm that thinks it's making a decision based on the current trends in the organization. And so it might be excluding huge swathes of the population because it thinks it's making the right call based on whatever data is being fed into it. The AI is only as good as the data. Remember that. Remember that. What do you think about Andrew Yang's platform of people actually getting something back from the profit generated by data? I know your views generally on UBI, but anything more broadly on this? Well, we actually talked about a system recently in a podcast. I'm not sure if you're aware of the podcast. I might put it here just in case people are interested in that. Well, we actually talk about AI quite a lot. I really think that it's the future of the capitalist mode of production. So we might as well get down with it and all of its scary ramifications. But, like, we actually talked about it here. So let me give you that. We'll put that in the chat for you. But like, I don't think you can really just make a law and say to AI companies, like actually to any surveillance capitalist or any company that's involved with, big tech that scrapes your data, because there's a lot of third parties and small companies out there that scrape your data. Like, they produce some addictive game or something, and its only job is to get you to play this game endlessly so it can get access to your photos and all the data on your phone and track your habits and all that sort of stuff. And you just click, read terms and conditions because you just want access to the game and because you just want some downtime, and it ends up just data mining you. I don't think you can really regulate it in that way. You can't turn around to the companies and be like, all right, fine, then you give us a fraction of whatever profits you make from data mining people. Because like with tax law, corporations will either lie about how much money they're making, or they will figure out loopholes to evade how much money they're really bringing in as profit, or they will ship that money off to a place like a tax haven, or they will have a company that makes the profit and then is owned by another one, and part of the system that they have is, oh, well, okay, we made some profits, but technically we're running at a loss because the parent company owns us and we owe all of this money to the parent company, so we actually be just pay the parent company for that. So like that's all these like very intricate ways that companies have figured out how to get around taxes. Now, if you put in legislation that it requires a bunch of tech bros to disclose how much money they make out of data mining people, and then they have to start paying people back, they're just going to lie or figure out ways around disclosing how much money that they make off data and data mining. And so I think the best way to do that, honestly, and like, you can argue about this one for days, and I don't think that like people would probably agree with this, but the way to get around that, honestly, would be in your state and your country or your union, your European Union, your collection of countries, is to have a Bill of Rights for the 21st century, and to basically, I think, institute in your Bill of Rights that you have sovereignty over your data. And so straight off the bat, the companies that want to do business in your world, in your little region, your section of the online landscape, they have to have stuff inbuilt in order to basically request your information off you before they get it and set up some type of exchange for it. If people have sovereignty over their data because it's in their country's constitutions, then the companies who will want to do business because they want access to the markets, it's too profitable, but then they will have to have something inbuilt where the only way that they can operate in your country is that they set up some type of account with you and you get credit. Every time they take data off you, you get credit, and then that credit can be exchanged somewhere for, I don't know, real money or something like that. But like, it has to be a right. And I think the best way to start that off would be to get the UN to acknowledge something like that. But it has to come from, I think, the sovereignty of the individual up, as opposed to the company down, being squashed by some type of regulation. They'll fight it to death, and it'll be too hard to police it anyway. They'll figure out ways to lie about how much their profit they're making. But if they have to do it on every individual user and set up, so straight away, if you have an account with them, then they have to be able to exchange with you for something. Then they do it on a user by user basis right then and there, I think. That's just my 2 cents on that one. Wait. About non-banned bio under Annex 3, does that mean they won't be banned? Or does it mean they currently aren't banned but will be under Annex 3? Give me a second. Let's get to that. Thanks. Aren't there new multinational tax avoidance laws to address that? Although I feel like that'd work out they'd work out a way around. I think that they will work a way around that. Dude, then companies need more audits, especially AI companies. Governments have zero ways to know whether or not a company is violating bio laws on remote AI servers unless there are constant audits. Yeah. If they're using remote servers, like how the hell would you know? That's actually a really good point, actually. But like again, if you do it at the individual level, every time they open up an account with someone and they have to get access to your, or they're accessing your data, then they're going to have to compensate you for that. That's have to be inbuilt into their systems somehow. You got to have sovereignty over your data. And like it can be regulated through the state in the sense that if your IP address is coming from that country, then that government, that state apparatus who regulates that, they have some way of measuring or not whether your data is being scraped. They can figure it out already. That's what the EU have already done with their data privacy acts. They know when the company is going to start mining you for data because it comes up if you live there, if you've been there, it comes up with a message each time. It's like they're going to take your data. Are you comfortable with this? So it happens right up front in the process, if you ask me. Non-banned biometrics, remote biometric identification systems, excluding biometric verification that confirm a person is who they claim to be. This is what they call Annex 3. This is just what they're listing as high risk. I don't think they're saying it's banned. I think they've said this is banned, prohibited AI systems. But like high risk are biometric identification systems. They're high risk. So like, what does that mean? Requirements for high risk providers. Establish a risk management system. So they're going to make sure that they can manage their risk somehow. Throughout the high-risk AI system life cycle, conduct data governance, ensuring that training, validation, and testing data sets are relevant, sufficiently representative, and to the best extent possible. Draw up technical documentation to demonstrate compliance and provide authorities with information to assess that compliance so they can be audited. There you go. Design their high-risk AI systems for record keeping. I don't know, who's going to review all of this stuff? Provide instructions for use to downstream deployers to enable the latter's compliance. Design their high-risk AI system to allow deployers to implement human oversight. That's interesting. Establish a quality management system to ensure compliance. So would a VPN give us access to the benefits of these laws? If so, would it become the norm for people to start using a European located VPN? That's a really good question. Any tech people in here? I would say that yes, actually. It would actually, if you were using a VPN and like coming in from a country under the EU, that's where your IP address is coming from, then the people that are whatever, like, I don't know, company that you're using, whatever website you're using, they would be subject to the laws coming from where that IP address is. That's actually a really interesting question. You know, you want to ask our AI assistant on that one? See what it thinks? Let's ask it. If you are using a VPN and you choose your IP address from an EU member country, will the websites that you're visiting be restricted under this act because your IP address is coming up from the EU somewhere? No, simply using a VPN with an EU-based IP address will not automatically make websites you visit restricted. It's not like the GDPR cookie consent rules or the Digital Services Act content moderation rules, which directly affect the website. The AI Act regulates how AI systems are built, deployed, and marketed. Applies to companies providing AI systems so it actually affects the data collection of the GDPR. So like maybe it's more applicable to that. But this seems to be just is regulating the ethical standard of the AI systems themselves, as has been brought up a number of times, the ethics of it. So if you're just visiting websites or using AI tools while connected through the EU, through an EU IP, those sites won't suddenly block features because of the AI Act. But if the service is an AI system that falls under high risk or prohibited categories, and the provider is targeting EU users, they might already have changed or restricted features for all EU visitors, VPN or not. Okay, so they're going to put parameters on their systems in order to operate in the EU. It's about provider compliance, then user location filtering. Interesting, nonetheless. Interesting. All right, we're going to take a quick diversion here because I actually want to hear someone explain like broadly what this is about. I think we've been getting actually quite technical. We got right into the weeds of this one, but I want to actually get a European analysis in English, of course, about how this actually worked at the time when people were first talking about it.
This act is.
All right, let's have a listen here, shall we? I know you all love my voice, but I'm sure you're over it. Eh?
Now, EU lawmakers have just approved the world's first legal framework on artificial intelligence. The Act aims to balance the safety and reliability of AI use for people across Europe, whilst also fostering its development in various industries. It's been 5 years in the making, and it could be seen as a precedent for countries struggling to control AI's rapid advance. And for more, I'm joined by our correspondent, Lucia Schulten, who is in Strasbourg. Louisa, tell us more about what the Parliament just voted on.
Yeah, so the European Parliament today has decided on the EU AI Act, and this piece of legislation is a decisive one for regulating the sector of artificial intelligence. It is deemed to be the first one by a major regulator worldwide that is that comprehensive. And the principle which underlies this act is relatively simple. So the idea is the riskier the AI system, the higher the threshold for regulation. And that goes as far as there are certain things that are being banned by this AI Act. And then from there, they decide, there are like certain areas where they decide what kind of regulation is needed. And for this Act to enter into force, it has been decided today by the European Parliament, but it still needs a final approval by the EU member states, which is supposed to happen in April, and only then it will enter into force.
And so give us a sense of what's going to change once it does enter into force. What's going to change for people living here in the European Union?
Yeah, so for people in the European Union, the European institutions have been saying they do this, they do regulate AI systems to give people trust into these. And there is also a certain amount of clarity coming. And I have already mentioned these bans. And just to make this clear, there are certain things which will be prohibited in the European Union. One of these is, for example, that you will not be allowed to do a facial recognition on CCTV live streams, except for the authorities in very, very restricted circumstances. For example, when there is a case of terrorism, or if you're...
I don't buy that one. I think it's way too popular. Way too popular for states. Way too tempting for states to be able to just monitor everyone all in time. Like, I don't know, what are they going to do with all of that data? But like, in order to sift through the crowd, you have to identify people. I don't see it happening that they're just going to use it for terrorism or people who have gone like missing or something like that. Special case scenarios. I don't know, man. It's not the world that we live in now. If you have this surveillance technology, as if they're not going to use it, I don't know. Call me a skeptic. Fair enough, but I don't know.
looking for a victim of kidnapping. But apart from that, this will be forbidden, as well as certain manipulative behavior. There's the idea of the social scoring should be banned in the European Union once this enters into force. And these bans, they are already also expected to enter into force 6 months after the law has entered into force. So this
See, again, with the social scoring, like, what does that even mean? Honestly, because like social scoring goes on all the time anyway. If you've ever applied for a loan at the bank or a mortgage or something like that, that's all they're doing is social scoring. And now that they have AI systems to help them crunch data, like banks were good at crunching data before. They were really good at crunching data before, and they could access, like, you had to sign agreements and say that they can go and look at your history. And so they're going to have AI that basically gives you a social score. Let's be honest. It looks at like your spending habits. It looks at whatever you get up to as well. It's seeing your day to day, and it's assessing you as a person, and then decides whether or not you should be able to partake in the economy by getting a loan to buy whatever consumer article you need, be it a house or some other large asset that you require in this free market society that we live in. But again, social scoring, what does that even mean? Like, is it just, who's that limited to? Honestly, because yes, banks do this stuff all the time anyway. Man, very restricted. Wings of Cheese. Hello, by the way. It's good to have you. Man, very restricted. How long will it take for the police in the EU to throw a net over broad terms to crush political dissidents and using AI in law? Yeah, just mark them as terrorists. Look what's happened in the UK. They didn't like what those Palestinian protesters were doing, and so they just labeled them a terrorist organization. So by all accounts and purposes, if the UK was still in the EU, they could argue that there's a whole bunch of Palestinian protesters out there. They could be associated with a Palestinian group they've just labeled as a terrorist organization. So turn on all the surveillance cameras, and we need to catch these people out. They were arresting them in the hundreds earlier this week, in the hundreds. Because they're all terrorists. They're all terrorists now. In the US, it's already so over. The road cameras will now report people for having weird routes. So if you did nothing wrong, but say you take 2 U-turns, the camera reports you. That's pretty mental. That's really weird. Yeah, but the social scoring systems were kind of independent and based on more financial choices. It's still a form of scoring. Like, what's the difference? They do a credit check on you. They're assessing you as an individual about whether you are a safe bet or not. And they take into consideration lots of stuff. Okay, maybe they might not trawl to see what your political standpoints are. But what else are they using social scoring for? Let's ask our research assistant, shall we? And what I'm thinking is, what point will they conflate things with terrorism, you know? Then they have the ability to use AI. AI can't imagine it would matter. Well, just like Palantir was labeling people as terrorists in Gaza, though, yeah, through their behavior. Yeah, let's quickly ask, like, I'm not convinced by this social scoring one, I must admit. Okay? I'm not buying it. So, social scoring is considered to be a prohibited activity under the Act. What constitutes social scoring? Can you please give me an example of this? Imagine the government using an AI system that collects data on citizens' punctuality and paying bills, social media, neighborhood they live in, and past traffic offenses, creates a social score. Yeah, but that's imaginary. Real world parallel often cited is China's social credit system, though the EU definition is broad enough to cover small scale local. The example you've provided seems to be hypothetical. Are there actual examples of social credit systems in the EU or the US that are currently in use by the state or the private sector? It's thinking. It's thinking. Oh, Squeeb89, no way, in the house. I only got 5 minutes before next work interview. What have I missed? We're looking at the EU AI Act, and it basically seems to be setting some type of ethical parameters about what is acceptable forms of AI or, you know, machine learning or software algorithms to be using on the populace in the EU, and like what type of functions are okay and what type of functions are not. And that's pretty much where we're at right now. And there seems to be a lot of regulation as to, okay, if you're doing and using AI, then there are certain levels of information that you have to provide to demonstrate that it's legitimate. And it's not encroaching on copyright issues, and it's traceable, and you can basically get instructions on how to use it and when it should be used, etc., etc. It's like setting up a framework of that nature. I hope that was enough of an assessment, a summary before your next interview. Just got off an interview and a candidate directly asked, what are we doing at company XYZ in AI? A social credit system, China. New social scoring includes all comments online. Yeah, I know, right? Hey, well, we're all screwed. Hey, we're all screwed indeed. China is not tech literate. Is not as tech literate as big tech, yes. And you still have 2 minutes. Oh my God. Great. And I still got time up my sleeve. All right. Pilot systems in some cities. In Italy, cities like Rome and Bologna have piloted initiatives often described as smart citizen wallets. These reward eco-friendly behavior like recycling and using public transport through points-based systems, while behavior tracking is involved. They are generally viewed as benign incentive schemes rather than social scoring systems in the prohibited sense. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, there you go. We've got a real-world example here. My answer was Copilot in code development and building APIs to support AI tools. Just building support for others to use your API absolves you of how it's then used. Interesting. I'm assuming you probably get that question a little bit actually in your interviews, especially in your sector. Although centralized personal scoring systems like China's are highly unlikely in EU due to legal and societal safeguards, there are still invasive scoring mechanisms in use. Insurance companies, fuck, why didn't I say that? I was talking about banks before. Insurance companies, this is it, man. This is where it's at. And people are like, hey, the Chinese, they're so evil. Look at them with their social credit system. Look at insurance companies. They will look for any reason to assess you and not have to pay you out. They'll take your money though. Insurance companies may utilize risk scoring based on personal behavior. They definitely troll your social media. These can resemble social scoring, but applied with specific risk assessment contexts rather than general social sorting. Get fucked. The insurance industry. You can't trust those guys, that's for sure. Decentralized corporate scoring practices. There's no government-run social credit system. However, numerous private sector practices resemble consumer behavior models and private analytics. Companies collect and aggregate behavioral and demographic data, often sold to employers, insurers, and landlords. That's scary. Imagine rocking up to try and rent somewhere, and they've got a profile on you and they've taken all your information, whatever information they could get off you on the web, like from your social media habits, maybe from your purchasing habits, like whatever they can get access to, and they shut you down and you can't rent a house, you can't get accommodation on planet Earth because someone's decided you are an unsavory character. That's crazy. Example 2 is Navigate, used by over 500 US schools, generates student risk scores based on engagement and dropout likelihood. Investigations have raised concern about racial bias and disproportionate labeling of minority students as high risk. What the fuck? Got to drop. See you in 50 minutes. See you later. Good luck. Good luck. Yeah, insurance will get you, man. Alessa, used in casinos to monitor patrons and trigger alerts if certain risk thresholds are met. Patron Scan, ID scanning systems that can flag visitors across venues for up to a year. It has faced legal scrutiny over biometric privacy laws. Whoa. LexisNexis and Trulio build risk profiles using public records and third-party data to inform decisions in rentals, employment, insurance, fraud detection. Third party. They scrape your data from third parties. This is where it's at, man. Third parties. They get access to your data and then they sell it on, and it's for stuff like this: insurance, employment, fraud detection. Yeah. Platform and gig economy ratings. Services like Uber and Airbnb rely on mutual user ratings to determine access to rides or stays. Yeah, I guess that's like a level of social scoring, isn't it? Like if you're a bad passenger and like people just continually dislike you, then like you're not going to be able to, they're not going to pick you up anymore. Social media and review platforms, Yelp, Google, also influence visibility and reputation. This is customer feedback. Yeah, I guess there's a case to be made there. Credit scores, a parallel, not the same. I don't know, man. I'd sound like credit scores really strike me as just social scoring, if you ask me. Just that the banks have been doing it for longer, so it's okay. This has been very interesting, this little foray into social scoring, that's for sure. All right. Back to our friends, the real journalists.
Could be before the end of this year.
Lucia Shilton reporting from Strasbourg. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
And I'm joined now by János Delka, who's DW's chief technology correspondent. Welcome, János. Tell me, what will this law change for people like you and me living here in the EU?
Well, it won't change anything immediately, but we will see increasingly those effects over the next coming years. Now, after this vote today, there are still a few formalities left to be settled. Once that's done, that's probably by May or June of this year, the law is going to take effect gradually over the next 2 to 3 years. And along the lines, we're going to increasingly feel the effect of those laws. For example, for the two of us living here in the European Union, we will have a right to know whenever we interact with an AI system. So, for example, if you use a chatbot like ChatGPT online, there would have to be a disclaimer saying, okay, this is an AI system you're interacting with. The same is true for a call center, for example. And then, of course, there are also changes, sort of like less obvious changes behind the scenes that we might not feel immediately, but that have, a significant impact on us as well. And that is sort of the idea that all the AI systems we're going to use will have to fulfill these requirements for what the EU now calls trustworthy artificial intelligence.
Okay, so quite comprehensive. We have to remember, this is the world's first comprehensive legal framework on AI, isn't it? So, how easily and successfully can this be implemented in practical terms?
Yeah, passing laws is one thing, and then enforcing them is another.
Something else.
Yes. So, this is really going to be a litmus test for this the next couple of years. The EU in Brussels is setting up its own AI office that will monitor particularly, big AI systems. And then each of the 27 member countries in the EU is naming their own AI watchdog where people will be able to file a complaint. Now, this is completely new. All these offices are being set up now. We will have to see if they get the right people with the right expertise. And, the big question is really, will they get the job done?
Mm-hmm. So kind of a work in progress, I guess. Now, this is EU-wide, isn't it? Does this act have any influence at all outside of Europe?
Well, that's at least what lawmakers in Brussels are hoping for. So they're hoping for what they call the Brussels effect, essentially the idea that the laws that have been passed here will sort of inspire or will be some kind of blueprint for the rest of the world, where other legislators are now looking into similar issues. There's sort of precedent for that. That's what happened with the GDPR. Our current data protection rules here in the European Union, they took effect back in 2018, and then we saw that afterwards, countries like Brazil, for example, passed data protection laws that very much aligned with the GDPR. And now the hope by many lawmakers in Brussels is that history will sort of repeat itself here.
Okay, so leading by example.
Interesting. Interesting nonetheless. Do you think the company that sounds like Planta? Do you know the company that sounds like Planta? They work with retail stores and more now by combing data from them, from government, from CAM, from a lot more. That's a true social score. Way before credit score. It sounds like it. I don't know, Planta, unless you are alluding to something that sounds a bit like it but doesn't rhyme with it. So like Palantir, I assume. Yeah, I really want to know now. My God, the suspense is killing me. I didn't realize that they work with real retail stores as well, but they've got their hand in everything. Everything. Right, bro, say it'll take a couple of years to judge this act. That's true, but that's so depressing. 5 to 10 years of my life will be a guinea pig under a litmus test. Well, somebody's got to do it. You can tell your grandkids you are a guinea pig for AI laws. Think this will become like cookies, just ton more checkboxes on websites, but no change to functionality offered. That's hilarious. Oh, I see Skate in the house. Yo, yo, yo. What's up? Welcome to the stream. We've been deep diving into what the EU AI Act is. I've gotten better at saying that. I'm going to say it one more time. EU AI Act. I fully on-chain, unstoppable, etc., etc. Party back together. Dude, I don't want to even mention their name. They probably have a database containing all those who speak bad about it. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Well, I'll just assume then. We'll assume away. But yeah, what Voltaire said. Yeah, okay. I didn't realize they were that far into retail. I thought they were servicing massive, shopping center. Not shopping center. I guess they are retailers, aren't they? Because they're helping Coles, and that's an Australian supermarket chain, which is on a national level. It basically services, I would say, a third of the Australian population. And they're helping them sort their data out. But I didn't realize that they were taking stuff from everywhere, monitoring people's cameras. But I'm assuming there's a lot of cameras at these stores, so they could probably monitor people quite well. And then they link that. This is the weird thing about those rewards cards that everyone likes to use. That is just data collection at its finest. So if you ever use those reward cards when you go shopping, just think about it again, because they're filming you when you're checking out. They're filming you in the aisles. And then when you rock up to buy stuff, they're keeping an account of everything that you buy. They've probably got access to that anyway, let's be honest. But if you pay with cash, it's harder to trace. So it's always good to have one of those flyby cards or whatever those. Yeah, Coles, Rio Tinto, Westpac. What? Palantir's helping Westpac? What's that about? Actually, I think we heard about that. It's interesting. AI seems to be data harvesting and its profit model. Ooh, I just realized YouTube did me a dirty and unsubbed. Bullshit. No way. That seems to happen a lot, to be honest. There was a certain period, a year ago, and I just was losing subs like nothing else. And yeah, YouTube did. YouTube, eh? Hey, make sure you hit that notification bell if you're subbing, please. But don't you want the $10 off? Yes, please. Take my data. I don't need it. So you can monitor me better in the shops and help make Palantir's systems better. Dogs. It's happened to me before, more than once. Really? This is bullshit. I wonder if the channel's been flagged. Probably has, you know. Probably has. Here in NZ, it was a issue because they announced that they were tracking and monitoring at checkout to make sure you don't steal or scan things incorrectly. Yeah, they were doing that here. Like, they were taking pictures of you as you were checking out and associate you with rewards cards that you used and the email you linked it. Shadow banned. Yeah, man. Yeah, there's been like pretty stagnant growth on this channel for a while now. I'm pretty sure that's the score dilemmas. We're gonna have to do something about that. I don't know exactly what, but back to the drawing board, my friend. Well, Totoro, do they use AI face scans though? Well, if they're scanning you at the checkout, which they have pretty good cameras there to get what to look at you while you're doing, just to make sure you don't, steal anything, then I reckon they're taking your biometric data for sure. Gone are the days of racking spray paint and stuff for Woolies. From Woolies. Yeah. Racking. I haven't heard that word in ages. Wow. I'm having flashbacks, man. I'm having flashbacks. Interesting nonetheless. Yeah, the company He Who Shall Not Be Named is out there helping everyone. They've just got the systems. And if you remember, we've talked about it many times, it wasn't the free market who made Palantir. Remember that. It was not the free market. It was In-Q-Tel, the what do they call themselves? What type of capitalist? The venture capitalist firm of the CIA that funded Palantir in its infancy. It's funded Palantir for the first 3 years of its life because it couldn't turn a profit, but it was just servicing the CIA and getting its money basically from In-Q-Tel. And then once they had the technology, and look at them now, they're servicing everything. They are servicing everything now. From government, massive government agencies, above board and not, to retailers that provide groceries and everything in between that. In CN, or even QR code and barcode scanners work as cameras now. Yeah, it's so obvious. It's multi-purpose because it's angled towards people's face rather than towards phones. Yes, you are. I remember something similar, if not exactly. There was a huge issue with people walking out with large trolleys full of groceries. So they were trying to identify individuals. CIA can service D's nuts. There it is. Service D's nuts right here. All right, let's see if there's any more gold and insights to come out of this EU AI investigation here.
Apparently not everyone's happy with some exceptions that have been made in this law for certain applications. Can you give us a couple of examples of those?
Yeah. And let me start by saying, artificial intelligence poses significant risks to our fundamental rights. And the AI Act now really addresses a lot of them. That being said, there are, what human rights activists call loopholes in this law. A good example is the use of facial recognition technology, a specific use, live facial recognition technology in public spaces. Now, in general, this AI Act bans that, but there are exemptions for law enforcement, for example, when they're looking for a missing child or when there's imminent terrorist threat. Now, law enforcement says, we need that in order to do our job. But on the other hand, you have human rights activists and people coming from that sort of privacy background who are warning that this could sort of erode fundamental rights here and that it would essentially affect everyone living here in the European Union.
Fascinating. DW's Chief Technology Correspondent.
Fascinating. Good work, mate. Good on you. Like, honestly, though, if this was happening in Stalinist Russia and they were following people around and they had cameras on everyone, everyone would be like, haha, totalitarian. That's what you get. You get totalitarianism because that's what happens when you have these evil commies. That's what they end up doing. They just monitor everyone and they're watching you. They're watching you all the time. Like, this is what we're living in now with people like Palantir at the helm, with their overarching and very sophisticated networks and machine learning. Things like Foundry, that's one scary piece of software. Tell you that much for free. What a juggernaut that is. Anyway, this is the type of totalitarian existence that is possible thanks to not just good old telecommunications infrastructure, but artificial intelligence. Because, like, you know, surveilling the world's population requires you to crunch a lot of information, and humans can't do that. But artificial intelligence, my God, algorithms, they can crunch through information like there's no tomorrow. And so, you know, here we are. They're talking about human rights, fundamental, inalienable human rights, the right to assemble, the right to move freely in public spaces, the right to not be constrained by tyrannical government. It is a very fundamental liberal notion. These ideas are fundamental. I was going to say something else, but they are essential to a liberal, a free existence. And AI gives the capability to erode all of those rights incredibly. Like we have never conceived before as a human race. You would have had to have, you know, armies of people being able to surveil populations before, if you had the technology behind it. Armies of people to surveil the population. And you still wouldn't have had enough people to surveil the entirety of the population, but you can do that now if everybody's got a computer in their pocket, and there's surveillance software and like infrastructure everywhere you go in the public sphere, whether that's, you know, at the local train station or if you're shopping and they're filming you. Data is being obtained on unfathomable levels, and he or she who holds the key to the systems that can make sense of that data, like a Palantir, are the surveillance capitalists of the future. This is the techno-feudal existence that Yanis Varoufakis has tried to warn us about. It is coming. It might not be here yet, but this is the logical extreme of this type of technology. It's crazy stuff. Law enforcement wants an exception to gather data. If you don't mind me asking, are you outside NA? Who are you asking that question of? If you're asking me, I am in Australia, if you are asking. If you're asking me, if you're referring to me as E. But yeah, this stuff does encroach on some rights, but, you know, that's the name of the game, man. This stuff has been designed for that purpose. They're acting here like this stuff needs to be regulated because it can be used nefariously. If you listen to someone like Shoshana Zuboff, this stuff isn't incidental. The entire network, the entire Internet of Things that has been created since the early 2000s has been made to surveil the world's populations. So stuff like this EU AI Act to ensure that some of the more dark ways of surveilling the world's populations are hindered, as well as using that surveillance technology to then modify people's behavior is hindered. It's too little too late. This technology is there for that purpose originally. And so, like, I think they might be able to get a bit of a handle on it, and we will see, I guess, over the next few years, as he mentioned. But like, this stuff has really only just come into effect as of mid-August, like really recently, when it comes to, you know, using general AI, so like large language models and chatbots and stuff like that. This has really only come in. Yeah, 5 years ago, this was a thing I was most worried about. Apart from them no longer need the numbers to watch everyone, they also won't have whistles. A is using your casual name E instead of your full name, Mr. E. If questionable things are done by AI and not by humans, AI won't blow whistles. It's a pretty good point, actually. No, sorry, I was just checking if you're actually speaking to me, or there was somebody else in the chat you were speaking to. That's a really good point, because AI doesn't have like a guilt reflex. And so if it's programmed to do something, it's not going to be like, hey, I think I'm being used unethically. It doesn't have, moral standards unless they are trained into the algorithm, or there's some filter turned on. It's not inherent for it. Unless it's reached a level of consciousness, which is always the argument from the big AI hype trainers out there. They're gonna reach a level of consciousness, and it's gonna surpass what human consciousness is capable of. They will set up a level of emotional development and guilt reflex that we wouldn't even be able to fathom. Can't use AI assistants in live stream without warnings. Well, I wonder if that's in the EU AI Act. Everything is regulated except for streaming culture. Definitely not. When will AI be checking through our cameras in our homes and on our phones, always watching and collecting? I think it already is. It already is. Or is it only applicable in the end user directly talks to the AI? Rings cameras. In time, insurance companies will require those. Yo, what did I miss? Look, Flores, we have just really been trying to get down and understand what AI regulation actually means. Because when I saw the laws come up that the EU have set up a world first in terms of AI regulation, I was like, what do they exactly mean by that? Are they regulating the concept of AI? Are they regulating the companies themselves? It seems like this is aimed somewhat at the companies to make sure that they are ethically developing AI models that are in line with usual liberal economic principles, like, you know, protecting the rule of law and respecting copyright, for instance, and making sure whatever AI systems are used are being labeled in a fashion that is conducive to users knowing what the hell's going on. Like labeling it, if you're talking to someone from customer service and it's really just a bot from a large language model, they've got to say, look, this is AI. You're speaking to artificial intelligence here. So like there's sort of user protection stuff on that end, but it's really been a lot about like what is an ethical application of AI models in surveillance capitalism, the stuff that we know so much about already, which is they take your data, whatever that is. There seems to be a lot about, they're really worried about biometric data here, like scanning your face in a public space, real time, and knowing your whereabouts and tracking you all over the place. They seem to be very worried about the ramifications for what that means for a free society. So they've set up a lot of stuff about whether or not they should be surveilling you, and like under what circumstances there should be an exception to that. There's always an exception. And so they're basically talking about how AI should be used in monitoring populations. And then outside of that, it talks like a bit about what is acceptable about how AI, especially, you know, algorithms within the context of things like social media, I guess, can be used to manipulate your behavior. They say manipulate because you can like kind of, you know, bombard someone with advertising, and that's technically manipulating their behavior, right? If you convince them slowly to buy something, that's a form of manipulation. But you can just bombard someone with ads anyway. The more scary stuff is behavioral modification. So getting you to do stuff that you hadn't even really thought about yet. Like if they manipulate you into buying something because you've put it on your cart somewhere and you've had it in your cart for ages and you've been thinking about buying it, and so they manipulate you by next time you come onto that website they give you a 10% discount. They manipulate you into buying that, right? But you're already going to buy that anyway because you've been thinking about it. But when it comes to modifying your behavior, it's another game altogether, and AI can do that intricately because it can compress and analyze so much data about you. It can actually get you to change your behavior without you even knowing. And that's a surveillance capitalist trick from, you know, it's OG. They've been designing these systems for a long time to be able to do this. And if they're worried about that, they really haven't talked about modifying people's behavior as much, which I think is a little bit more nefarious, if you ask me. My main concern is 95% of people either don't care or they don't know. Yeah, they probably are a little bit cautious about like how AI is used, but yeah, they have no idea. Vergilu, Stansu, I hope I've said that right, Stanku, they will block any work on AI in the EU. Oh, interesting. Not a big fan of the EU AI Act then, I'm sure. I wear a mouth cover to prevent a taco shop from gathering bio and sending. That's pretty funny, actually. And sending it. Interesting. Hey, goddamn, you gotta watch out. Once they know your habits, right? Gotta watch out. All right. I am actually going to leave it there for this stream, but it's been an interesting investigation. 4AS is right. There are a lot of new people that have come into this stream. People seem to like this topic, actually. But yes, please go over to the Discord if you haven't already, and come and join the chat. We share propaganda over there. We talk about like a lot of this type of stuff, and I'd be good to see. They're not really the new norm. They've kind of like, I've got an interrupted schedule, but like, I think we're getting a new mix of people. I think you're right, Scribs. I might mix it up a little bit and try and do this a little bit like off the cuff just to get access to like a broad range of opinions and conversation. So yeah, if you've liked this one today, please go over to the Discord, and also please go over to my Patreon and become a free member. You can sign up for free. It's so I can get notifications to you. As Dilemma has already explained, you know, YouTube unsubs him from my channel. So shit's going down. And so like, I don't trust social media in terms of notifications because like stuff like that happens. So if you go there, become a free member, I will be able to get notifications to you properly through Patreon. And there are tiers, so if you do feel like financially supporting, which I would really appreciate, you can do that as well. So yeah, thanks to everyone that's actually interacted today. It's been quite a lively one actually this afternoon. I didn't expect that for a Wednesday afternoon. But yeah, Voltator, Joanne, Lap, Jeff, 4IS, Voltator, Daniel. We had some new people coming in here as well. The mysterious A. It's good to have you. Jaden. I don't think I've seen you in a long time on a stream, Jaden. It's good to have you. Wings of Cheese was in there for a bit. Squeeb, of course. Have I missed anyone? No, I think I got everyone. Oh, Icy Skeen, of course, coming in. Dilemmas. Thanks for all your interactions, everyone. It's been an interesting afternoon. And we haven't really even scratched the surface. Didn't even get through the actual legislation, but here we are. Anyway, and anyone on the stream chat that I missed? Let's have a look. No, there's no one in the stream chat today. But Voltator wins the award for the censored comments. So congratulations, Voltator. Is YouTube doing that because you're talking about controversial topics? Thank you. Yes, it is. I think it is. I think the consensus is there on that one. I think it's a challenge of this channel, to be honest. But hey, we fight the good fight. And I understand this one now. Hey, Voltaire, I get the fucking reference. So right back at ya. So until next time, we're going to be on Twitch tomorrow. So I think we're going to be back to normal time tomorrow. So we'll be like 11 a.m. AEST, Australian Eastern Standard Time, if you're interested. And I might actually put that up now. So if people want access to it, they can get access to it. And they don't have to run around. It's been a while since we've been on Twitch, actually. I like to keep the Twitch stuff going. So like if you're interested in more streams, please go over and become a follower on Twitch so you don't miss out on stuff over there. I see other controversial channels are noticing that too. Yeah, it's our lot in life, apparently. But yeah, if you've just tuned into this though, we went through a bit of a deep dive into the EU AI Act, and we're going to finish it off now, but go back to the start of the stream and see how this unfolded, because it's been an interesting journey, to say the least. So I'm always trying to be careful with what I say online. You and me both. All right. Until tomorrow, please remember, I am, you are, we are a mystery. See you then. Thank you.